All right, so now we're in the last question, question number 15 of this passage on the English test. Let's read it and see what it's asking us to do. Suppose the writer's goal had been to write a brief essay focusing on, and I'm going to bracket this, some aspect of the animal behavior in the wild. Would this essay accomplish this goal? Now, the only way you can answer this correctly is by paying attention to the phrase that it's asking us to focus on. So, some aspect of animal behavior in the wild. So, the two questions we want to ask are, was this focused on animal behavior? Right? And is this in the wild? And if I answer yes to both of these questions, then my answer choice has to be yes. If one of these are wrong, so let's say it's focused on animal behavior but not in the wild, it would be wrong and the writer should not do that, or it would not accomplish that goal. Or if it was about animals in the wild but not about their behavior, again, this would not accomplish that goal. So let's read through here and see if both of these are accurate. And now if I scroll up to the top, and I'm sure you've read this, but just to look back on it and give it a second glance, we can see what's going on. What elephants learn. Okay, so that gives us a clue. Elephants are animals. Behavior makes sense that we're talking about learning, but let's validate that. Cynthia Moss has been studying elephants at this research project in Kenya. And she's an author, lecturer, filmmaker. She's widely considered an expert on social behavior of these creatures. Okay, so it looks like it's leading us into a passage regarding the social behaviors of elephants. A key finding from her intensive field studies, okay, so field studies, is the extent to which elephant survival depends on learned behavior. Moss observed, okay, now she's going into these learned behaviors. Again, going into the learned behavior. Elephants live in family groups. Okay, so yeah, this whole thing is about animals in the wild in Kenya, and she's performing field studies on these animals. So we know that this whole passage is about animal behavior, particularly elephant behavior, learned behavior, and these elephants live in the wild because it was a field study. So the answer is going to be yes, it would accomplish that goal, which means I can get rid of C and D. And I'm left with these different reasons why. Yes, because it focuses on Moss's research on how elephants on the savanna learn to identify various family members. Well, let's say this was a detail in the passage, right? If this was a detail in the passage, it would still just be a detail, right? And it would be too specific in order for it to accomplish this goal, right? It would have to be a little more broad, and it wouldn't necessarily fit the context of whatever it is I'm looking for, some aspect of animal behavior in this wild. In which case, learning to identify various family members would have been a detail, and it's not something that was mentioned in the passage. So A would have to be out. Yes, because it focuses on elephants on the savanna, and some of the behaviors they display as studied by Moss. Perfect. Okay, so as we read through here, we recognize that there were multiple behaviors, not just one detail. And so therefore, answer choice B would be correct. Okay, so again, how do we answer these types of questions? Well, they're going to give us very specific criteria in which we want to ensure are both being addressed. And that's why we created this little chart here, animal behavior and wild. And then only when we were able to check both of these boxes would we answer yes. If these boxes weren't checked or only one of them was checked, then the answer would have to be no. Once we completed that step, then we needed to find the reasoning behind it. And in this case, we had to be very careful about not picking something that was too specific or that wasn't even necessarily mentioned in the passage. We have to get the proper connotation down, or the proper scope, I guess you could say. Pick it, and that's it.